Welcome back, everyone. Next, we have Seven Therapeutics, Inc. It's a private company whose vision is to develop transformative therapies for people with brain injury. Please welcome its CEO and director, Michael McFadden. Nice to see you, Michael. Welcome to the conference today.
Thank you so much. And I'm really excited to present Seven Therapeutics to our audience today. The company is private. We are about to undertake a seed round of investment to further fund operations with the company. And I'll talk about that, details on that at the end of the presentation. Now, much of what I'm going to say contains forward-looking statements, and there are legal disclaimers I'd encourage everyone to read to understand the implications of that. You can find this presentation on the Seven Therapeutics website. Now, what is Seven Therapeutics focused on, and what is the opportunity with Seven Therapeutics? We have intranasal drug formulation that potentially is the first treatment for cognitive impairment with concussion or mild traumatic brain injury. We've licensed the worldwide rights to develop and commercialize this asset in TBI and related disorders. The cognitive impairment market is estimated in the US alone to be $17 billion. There's no approved product and currently no good product to treat that condition. We have substantive preclinical data and clinical data already on the asset. I'll talk to that, as well as what I believe is a very compelling thesis on why our drug will work. Additionally, no toxicity has been observed in any studies. We have a great safety profile with our asset and patents that extend to 2043. We offer significant milestones for value creation with investors. There are a litany of these in 2024 and also 2025, with a potential exit for our seed investors in 2026. Now, let me talk about the condition. What is a mild traumatic brain injury or concussion, and how does this affect cognition, or how does it cause the injured cognitive impairment? Well, there are 5 main areas that cause a TBI. One is falls, vehicle accidents, violence, sports injuries, and then combat injury or training injury for our warriors. MTBI or concussion causes a wide range of functional deficits when it occurs. They're in the 3 categories. The first, cognitive impairment. That's the area we're focused on. What is that? Short-term memory loss, trouble concentrating, difficulty processing thought, or exhibiting lack of focus. And we believe our drug can treat and ameliorate that symptomatology. There are also 2 other symptoms that often occur with concussion. One is mood, behavioral disorders like depression, anxiety, and the third is physical function, most commonly headache or sleep issues. Now, how big is the market? Why do we say it's $17 billion market? There are about 3 million TBIs a year. 90% of those are mild, and about half of that market, or half of the patients suffering from concussion, have some type of cognitive deficit. So when you run the numbers on these types of patients with a treatment at the price point that we believe could be obtained, it values the market at about $17 billion. So a significant market, amazing market with no approved product. Now, let me talk about the rationale for our product and why do we think it would work? What's the mechanistic thesis on why alpha 1062 intranasal might help these patients who suffer from cognitive impairment? First, it's an alpha-7 nicotinic modulator. So what does that mean? The alpha-7 modulation, we know, improves brain receptor transmission, has an anti-inflammatory effect, and it also stimulates the cholinergic pathway. Secondarily, it affects acetylcholine neurotransmission. We know that's responsible for memory, for thinking, also for attention. And then last, it also exerts a downstream effect on other receptors like dopamine, GABA, serotonin. These receptors have been demonstrated effect on attention, reaction time, and memory. Now, we also have data that we're basing our thesis on, preclinical data, and then we also have clinical data in humans with the asset. I'll talk about the studies that we've completed thus far, but there are 12 studies that we complete, and I'll share what our results have been. Alpha 1062 is an intranasal formulation, so you can see a visual of the drug. And what we like about the intranasal formulation is it increases very high peak levels of drug almost immediately after the drug is administered. And we've done this with really good tolerability for the asset. And the studies that demonstrate that tolerability and safety are as follows. We've completed 12 studies in total, 5 preclinical, and then the remainder have been clinical studies. And in every study, safety's been confirmed, no safety issues have been observed, and no toxicity has been observed with the drug. So we have a very safe, non-toxic drug, and we also have demonstrated preclinical efficacy. I'll show that in 2 slides. Here's the development program, so you can see the preclinical work that's already been completed, illustrated by the check marks. We've completed pharmacology, preclinical data, brain histology data, pharmacokinetic studies been completed. And then on the clinical work that we've completed, both SAD and MAD have been completed. So what's remaining for our compound is to complete a 90-day toxicity study, and then we would move to an IND with FDA for permission to start a phase 2 efficacy study for our medication. Now, let's look at the preclinical data that I believe demonstrates very strong demonstration of the thesis that we have for our drug. This was a 3-arm study. So we had one arm where injured animals received medication, our medication. One arm where injured animals received no medication, that's placebo. And then an uninjured arm that we compared both of those arms to. What the study demonstrated was in cognitive functional tests and also in motor sensory functionality tests, that drug arm was superior to placebo in every measure. It was also equivalent to uninjured or the sham arm in 4 or 5 primary endpoints. So this data was extremely positive and bolstered our confidence that our drug is going to work for cognitive impairment. Additionally, we autopsied the animals and saw brain regeneration occur within 30 days, so demonstrating neuroprotectiveness and neurogenesis occurring with our drug, and we have data to show this. Now, what I mentioned that we intend to run a toxicity study with the program, and then we would enter into a phase 2 study. This study would look at cognitive impairment as a primary endpoint. And then we would also look at multiple secondary endpoints, which we believe our drug may have an effect on. I won't talk a lot about this study, but I'm available at a different time to go through the details of the study and the protocol. Secondly, we also have a study underway in a partnership with the Department of Defense, and we'll be releasing data on this study interim data mid-year, and then final data at the end of the year, looking at a bomb blast study model, more in the acute phase, to demonstrate effect with our drug. So stay tuned, more data coming from that study that's already underway. So in summary, the Alpha 1062 intranasal opportunity represents an opportunity to enter into a very large market, affecting about 1.5 million people every year. It's valued at about $17 billion. There's no approved product in the market. We know that any approved product in this area, due to the focus on concussion and treatment of concussion, will command a premium price. We know that our drug has we believe, a very good chance to work. One, because of the MOA, how it works in the brain. Number 2, because of the symptomatology that we're targeting, where we know our drug has effect. We have good rationale for efficacy. Alpha 7 receptor modulation, we know, is implicated in memory. We know it's implicated in processing speed. We know the cholinergic pathway effects that our drug has is important for also short-term memory and processing speed. We know that our drug is safe and effective, and we know we have an impact on inflammation in the brain with the early work that we have completed. Additionally, we have milestones that will be forthcoming that we believe will reward investors. Now, how will we use our proceeds with the seed round that we're about to raise? So most of the money will be used for regulatory work, for manufacturing. We need to update clinical supply. We also will do some work on formulation to improve tolerability in the nasal passage, and then to complete our toxicity study that the FDA is asking us to complete before entering into a phase 2 study. And here's the timing of inflection points. You can see we're into 2024. DoD bomb blast studies ongoing. We would, upon successful raise of our seed round, enter into our formulation work, followed by toxicity study, and then submit an IND for a phase 2 trial. And then this is our cap table. Alpha Cognition, which is a public company traded on the Canadian exchange, CSE, is a primary shareholder. Spartan Capital is also a significant shareholder in the company. And then who is the company? You can see the management team. Dennis Kay is our Chief Science Officer. He's leading our efforts on the preclinical study. We have myself. I've got 3 years experience with this compound, 34 years in biopharma with the development of 25 drugs and partnerships in over 20 companies. And then our board, Tony Strickland, myself, lead the strategic thinking for the company. And then we have a great group of scientific advisors, Dr. Cantu, Dr. Peskin, Dr. Bernick, who guide our thinking on protocol and the work as we move the company forward. So let me stop there. I have gone through information rather quickly. If there's interest in following up with the story or questions about anything that I've talked about here, you can see the contact information. Welcome to reach out to me directly, and I'm happy to answer questions relative to Alpha 7 or our drug. I'll now turn it back to our moderator for questions from the audience.
Thank you, Michael. Important work here. A question for you. Will this drug be studied in acute concussion?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm going to go back as I answer that question to the protocol that we've designed. And I'll talk a little bit about our rationale for design for cognitive impairment versus acute. So we're looking at the acute measure of TBI in the bomb blast study that we're partnered with the Department of Defense on. So we will have some measure of preclinical efficacy with alpha 1062 intranasal in the acute phase. For the phase 2 program, we plan to not look at the acute phase, but to look at patients who are screened having had a concussion up to 90 days prior. Now, why are we looking at it that way? There's a very good reason. One is there's a very high placebo effect the first 2 months post-concussion. So a lot of patients just improve on their own. But we know from the TRACK TBI study that patients who don't improve by month 2 often are stuck with lingering symptoms that persist for up to a year after the concussion. So we'll be allowing that placebo effect to wash out, then entering those patients in our study who've had concussion, but also suffer from cognitive impairment. Additionally, we will measure drug efficacy for anxiety, for depression, for sleep, and for headache as secondary parameters. We believe the drug may have some effect there, and if it does, then that adds value, we think, to the company and what this drug can do to help patients suffering from concussion.
Eric McLean asks, when you say the first treatment, how has this symptom been addressed in the past?
Yeah, that's a great question. So currently, when a person suffers from concussion, there is no treatment. So they are asked to, previous data said, go sit in a dark room, hope for the best, and we hope you get better. Current thinking, and there's good evidence, research evidence to support, don't do that. Be active, get back to your normal functioning, as long as it's not anything that could cause further head injury. And But doing that activity is not really a treatment. It's just a functional response to the concussion. And there is really no treatment available today for the cognitive impairment that may affect an individual suffering from concussion. Now, for headaches are treated with CGRPs. They're also treated with over-the-counter or other pharmaceutical agents. Sleep, there are some drugs that are used commonly for sleep, but for cognitive impairment, there's really no drug. And it is really a hope for the best scenario for the patient, which is terrible. And long-term, the only treatment that patients do undergo is some counseling to try to improve cognitive impairment. They may go through a series of exercises to try to strengthen their brain tissue, but there's really no pharmaceutical treatment for this area, which is why we think there's such an unmet need and why we think our product could be highly valued should we show success.
And talk about some of the patents you have for Alpha 1062.
Yeah, we have multiple patents on the product. They're worldwide patents. We have method of use for all conditions related to TBI, including acute and long-term TBI treatment. We also have another patent that covers all use with cognitive impairment and all symptomatology related to cognitive impairment. And we will file in 2025 comp of matter on the drug. Additionally, there are other secondary patents that cover the asset, ranging from 2033 all the way to 2043.
And this seems like a massive market opportunity, but who are your competitors in the industry?
Yeah, as there is no approved pharmaceutical and really no good treatment for cognitive impairment, there are really no competitors. There are a mix of competitors for secondary symptoms, but we're seeking indication where we really have no competition. So this would be a breakthrough drug for this condition should we show efficacy in our phase 2 trial. It's another reason we're just really excited about the opportunity, and we think investors should be excited as well.
Kyle McCoy asks, do you plan to produce and sell yourself, or do you need a partner for getting it to the market?
Yeah, so our plan currently is we met with the FDA on a pre-IND meeting last year. FDA guided us to complete a 12-week toxicity study, and we plan to do some formulation work during that window of time to reduce potential irritability that can occur in the nasal passage. Post that work, we believe it'll be successful. We already have 2 28-day tox studies. We believe that 3-month tox study will also be successful. We'll file an IND, which will allow us to pursue a phase 2 program efficacy study for our drug in this condition. And you're looking at the study overview of the study protocol in front of you. If that study is successful, I think there are multiple opportunities that could open up for our investors. One is that we IPO the company and raise additional capital to complete phase 3. Number 2 is we partner with a large strategic pharmaceutical company to partner phase 3 trials. Or third is that there could be M&A activity with a condition this big with no competition. We think that the company is going to be highly desirable upon good results.
And Mark Aguilar wants to know your go-to market strategy. Are you going to target the sports market or doctors first? What's your plan?
Yeah, it's a great question. Also, I'm going to go back to a slide I talked about on who would we target and where will we target. So if you look at the reasons and the causes for concussion, they're falls. These are typically elderly patients that lose their balance and fall and hit their head. Number 2 is vehicle-related concussions. Those are auto accidents, and we have tens of thousands of those every single year. The third is violence. Think domestic violence or fighting. 2 people get into a fight, a person is hit in the head, suffers a concussion. The fourth is sports injuries. Sports injuries, we've heard this on the news every week, especially with NFL and college football. Soccer is another, and MMA is a fourth, where athletes are hitting their head and they go into concussion protocol. And then the last is military injury. That both is in the battlefield, in theater, and also in training. All of these areas and all of these patients are our market for this asset. Now, who will we target if the product is approved and is in the market? We would target the neurologists who treat these patients. There are concussion centers around the United States that specialize in concussion treatment, and neurology offices, neurologists often are the first treater to manage a mild TBI or a concussion. So the product, if approved, would be focused on neurologists, educating them on diagnosis and then ultimately treatment for these patients in all these categories who might suffer from concussion and need a pharmacologic therapy.
And Alex wants to know, is there any data to reflect economics like sales price, insurance coverage, or is it too early for that?
It's too early for that, but here's what we do know. In categories where there is no approved product, and in categories where there is high need to treat, and head injury would be one of those categories with high need to treat, we know that all pharmaceutical products command a price premium when they come to market. And then what that price premium is really dependent upon the strength of the data. So it's too early for us to understand how good the data is going to be and how robust our data package will be that we submit. But we know that in a large market with high need to treat, that a price premium will be warranted for the product.
And Sarah Livingston wants you to go back to the timeline to human trials. When would that timeline be again?
Sure. Let me pull that up. So this is the timeline to human trials, and I'm going to walk through it a little bit slower because we have a few minutes. So currently underway with the company, we have a DoD bomb blast study that started last year, and we'll provide interim results mid-year this year, and then final results at the end of the year. That's an acute trial. We partnered with the Department of Defense on that trial. We're really excited about what those results can be. Then number two, we will complete, upon conclusion of the seed round that we're raising money for, formulation work. That formulation work will be used to reduce nasal irritation with our product. And then we will pursue a toxicity study. That's a 12-week toxicity study asked for by the FDA. So we'll pursue that study in Q3. That study will conclude at the beginning of Q4, and then we will file an IND submission with the FDA for initiation of a phase 2 trial. We would start that phase 2 trial immediately upon approval of the IND submission. That trial will run about a year, and then it'll take additional quarter for us to compile the data and release and publish that data. And I think that represents the inflection point. Should that data be robust? Should the data be good, as we think it can be with this asset, an opportunity to sell, partner, or IPO the company?
And thank you for that. Tracy asks, what does the dosage look like? How is it administered and for how long?
Yeah, it's administered intranasally. So think, I don't know if any of you on the line have ever taken Afrin, but it's a squeeze bottle. You push it into your nose, you squeeze it, and medicine is released. Our medicine is very similar to that. And it's dosed at a 5, a 10, and a 15 milligram strength. So a user would take a dose in the morning, and then they would take a dose in a different nostril in the evening. So 2 doses a day. And that is, we intend to maintain that formulation, and we'll look at the doses to determine what the optimal dose is in our phase 2 trial.
And Kevin Hunt wants to know, how much have you raised in the past, and what was the valuation the last raise was done at?
Yeah. So another good question. So this company is a spin out of Alpha Cognition. Alpha Cognition is a public company. That company is seeking approval of a drug for Alzheimer's disease, mild to moderate Alzheimer's disease. So in 2023, we had such great preclinical results in TBI, the company wanted to advance the asset. However, with an impending approval for Alzheimer's disease, all capital for Alpha Cognition needed to be used for the Alzheimer's program. So to allow the asset to proceed, we elected and the shareholders approved a spin out of the asset to Seven Therapeutics. And Seven Therapeutics took with that spin out existing data that had already been created by Alpha Cognition. It took additional preclinical data that was completed in TBI, and it will take with it IP to protect the product. So though that was given to the company through that spin out as compensation for that, though Alpha Cognition remains a significant shareholder for Alpha 7 Therapeutics and will benefit as Alpha 7 Therapeutics has success.
And last question for you, Michael. What significant partnerships does the company currently have?
Yeah, so we have a partnership with the Department of Defense. The company won an award to initiate and complete Department of Defense bomb blast study. That's a preclinical study. So what we do in that study is measure animals in a bomb blast model, akin to what a soldier would experience in the battlefield, and then we treat them with drug. And I'll show the study protocol. I think we have just a moment to allow me to do that, because it's really a fascinating study. So this is our study protocol with the Department of Defense. And we are measuring reduction in behavioral functional deficit, brain-wide burden of neuropathology following this bomb blast model. So they get hit repetitively with a bomb blast, and then we treat them with drug, compare them to uninjured, and determine is drug making a difference for this acute phase and this unique scenario that the military could be quite interested in. So that's our partnership that we have with Department of Defense. And we also have multiple partnerships with Alpha Cognition, the company that spun this company out, including worldwide rights to research and commercialize the asset, including data sharing, which is very important as the company moves forward. And then third, we have a manufacturing agreement whereby supply is provided to the company through our initial clinical trial.
Wonderful. Well, Michael, really important work here. Thank you for joining the conference. Give our viewers some closing remarks.
Yeah. So look, we think this is a great opportunity to invest in a private company, but with significant opportunity for return on capital. Because we're entering a space with no approved product that exceeds $15 billion market value. And we believe that we've demonstrated already great safety with our asset, both in humans and animals. We've demonstrated efficacy in animals. It provides, I think, a pretty compelling thesis to participate in the concussion arena with an asset that could be highly efficacious. So if there's interest, as I mentioned, we're raising a seed round for this company. If there's interest in participating or finding out more about that seed round, please reach out to the company through the email, or you can go to our website at alpha7tbi.com, and we're happy to provide that information to you.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us on the conference, and we look forward to following you along with future updates.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, everyone, stay with us. We'll be back at the top of the hour with Clear Day.